Welcome to the Ghost Stories YouTube channel. Here, we will bring you the scariest experiences through ghost stories, mysteries, and inexplicable mysteries of the mysterious world. Whether you are someone who enjoys learning about ghost stories or simply looking for a new entertainment experience, our channel will be the ideal destination. Join us in the horror space and get ready for the most tense and scary moments. Don't forget to press the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. Thank you for joining the Ghost Stories YouTube channel, and now, get ready for some spooky moments with us.
7 Freaky Nights. Chapter 7, Saturday Night, Horror Game. These past few days, Thatch Enum has been the only one left in the house. His friends don't know where they've gone. A big house like this and he's the only one is really empty. Especially Truankiat, who just finished the ghost story last week, was nowhere to be seen, and didn't say hello wherever he went. In this house, someone disappears every weekend. The stories of the past few weeks were always lurking in his mind. It haunts him and makes it seem like he has no way out. Since Vuongdo's death, the police have always come here. This place is like their focus, but in some aspects, living here alone is not too scary. These past few days he has been looking at house rental information. This house is about to be liquidated. Although there are many houses to rent, the places are far from the office, and the rent is too expensive. During this time, he was pondering his options, and the weekend came again. He unconsciously sat on the chair. No one was telling stories today, and his nerves were used to being in a nervous state. Listening to the incessant ticking of the clock hanging on the wall, he felt like he was suffocating. Opening his computer to find the latest rental information, he opened QQ. There are so few people online today, maybe it's because of the weekend. He said hello briefly. He received a message from Triuduke. I came to find you today. Thatch Enum quickly replied, "What's going on?" There was no reply for a long time. Looking back, I didn't see Triuduke online anymore. Thinking about my friends, every day everyone is very close together. Since the Ghost Storytelling Association was established, they have disappeared one after another. If they go on business trips, they also return home. There are also people who don't know where they went. Why is there such a coincidence, or is it a plan? Ranked first sitting alone in the room, Thatch Enum thought. At first, he was the one who suggested establishing the Ghost Storytelling Association. As of this week, it is his turn to be the seventh person to tell the story. The stories his friends told were all very good, horrifying, and scary. Now I'm left alone, feeling so insipid. He looked out the window and suddenly saw two streaks of blue light outside the balcony flickering. He didn't know what it was, he had never seen it before and just sat and watched those streaks of light. Thatch Enum sat for a long time. Sitting idle with nothing to do, he walked back and forth looking like he was exercising, then looked at the time. It was already 6 p.m. Thinking about my friend, I rarely go into their room every day. Every day is always busy, and when I return, it's already late. On weekends, he wanders through the rooms, but they have turned off the lights, so he doesn't know what everyone else in the room is like. There's nothing to do today, I want to go into my friend's room to see how they decorate it. Thatch Enum thought so, immediately picked up a chair and stood up to look at the rooms through the ventilation door. The first room is very simple, like a student dormitory. There is only one single bed and one study desk. The second room is the same, with a new tank model on the nightstand. And the remaining rooms he discovered were all empty, as if no one lived. The wind blew into the hallway from somewhere, giving him chills. It's strange, when we first moved in, we each had one room. He never noticed anyone moving out, but why were there only 5 rooms occupied, plus his room was 6 rooms? So where is one person? There is one person who is not here, but must have joined the Ghost Storytelling Association from the first days. In the end, which of them is that person? Just thinking about him makes me shiver. There is also a basement in the house. Who knows if there are people down there? He went down to the basement. The further down he went, the darker it got. The house was so quiet that only the sound of one's own heavy footsteps could be heard. Go down the basement stairs. A dark shadow passed by, and his face felt like something had hit him, causing him pain. A cat with bright blue eyes. Already scared, the cat appeared, startling him. Thatch Enum was angry and angry. He picked up a brick and threw it at the cat. Let's see if you can still scare people. The light in the basement is on, and inside is full of junk, things left behind by previous tenants such as water jars, children's bicycles, bags, etc. This area is about to be demolished, so no one is cleaning it up. What to do? Thatch Enum looked around. How could anyone live here? It was both cold and wet. He walked around and found no trace of anyone living down here. He was about to go up, but curiosity held him back, and he found that in the basement there was a small, closed room. That room has long been rumored to have people hanging to death here. I like adventure, so I want to know what strange things really happened here. He had seen and heard horror stories. They all said that rooms where people had hanged themselves often turned into devil's nests. He wouldn't believe this unless he saw it with his own eyes. He hesitantly pushed the door open. A gloomy space appeared in front of me. Even though he felt dizzy at that moment, he was still very brave. Finding the light switch, he began to explore this room. It was full of dust and cobwebs, with one end of the rope tied to a pole, the other end tied in a circle like a rope used to hang people when they were executed. How many people's lives ended here? Looks like we haven't executed anyone here in a long time. There was no furniture in the room, except a rusty iron bed. Next to the wall is a sofa with a broken leg lined with old books. At this moment, there was a little dust falling from the rope, and I felt the door behind me gently closing. Turning my head to look, I couldn't find anything. I don't know if this is a place to stay or not. After taking 2 steps, there was a click sound and the light bulb went out. The door revealed a deep cave that seemed to swallow everything, including light. His heart wanted to burst with fear. He quickly left this terrible basement. His steps became more rapid, but it felt like something was following him, making him tremble. I turned around several times and saw nothing, only his footprints on the dusty floor. The faster I walked, the faster it felt like the stairs were getting longer and longer. It seemed to stretch on forever. Something kept following him. When he turned around, there was only the wind blowing, but no one could be seen. He looked again, and in front of him was the hanging rope that was the same noose he had seen in the warehouse. He screamed in panic and ran away. Running up the stairs, he discovered the stairs were steep. He still felt like there was something clinging to his back. He was so scared that he didn't know what to do. He just ran up 1 floor, but it was still stairs. Having no other way, he turned around with the thought of facing the demon that kept following him. He felt that black shadow getting closer and closer, as if it wanted to cover his entire body. He kept running a dozen floors in a row, but below were still stairs. He panicked. What happened? I know this house only has 4 floors and a basement. How can there be so many floors in the end? Where does it go in this dark space? He ran down 2 more floors and felt truly hopeless. A dark atmosphere with blurred lines. This is not the familiar house where he lives. It has turned into a strange place. He was sweating and hoped this was just a dream and not a harsh reality. Going down another floor, he stood still and observed where he was. This place looks similar to where I live. There are several ventilation doors, all of which have a view of the ocean. He used a lighter to look at the floor, 1603. His heart seemed to fly out of his chest. He quickly ran back. He only heard his hurried footsteps and his breathing. A dark shadow appeared standing right at the corner of the floor, just waiting for him to pass. It was a person wearing a black windbreaker standing quietly in the dark and not saying a word. Thatch Enum had no other way, so he had to run straight forward, closer to the black shadow, his heart pounding. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, moving closer, he tried to look closely at the black shadow, using all his strength to overcome this feeling of fear. In the darkness, he felt that this black shadow was very familiar, as if it were his friend Thatch Enum. Calmed down a bit, he stopped and looked at that shadow. The shadow spoke. Thatch Enum heard the voice and recognized Thwangiabang. Moving closer through the flickering light, it was indeed him. Thatch Enum breathed a sigh of relief. He heard Thwangiabang's slow voice in his ear, "Today is the weekend, why don't you tell stories?" "Thatch Enum, it's just me, what else can I say, where have you been these days?" "Thwangiabang, I just got back from a business trip, now I'm looking for you to tell me a ghost story." Thatch Enum got goosebumps when he heard your voice. Thwangiabang was cold and indifferent, unlike his usual smiling or talking self. Maybe it's because the temperature is low down here so both of them feel cold. "Thatch Enum, let's go up to my room and tell the story, it's too dark in here." Thwangiabang smiled faintly. "Before, weren't we always telling stories in dark places like this?" "Thatch Enum, so let's talk as we go, it's so cold here." After listening, Thwangiabang said, "Yes, this is a relatively long distance. I will tell you a story while traveling on business." Thatch Enum really didn't want to listen to the story anymore, he just wanted to quickly return home, to a brighter, warmer place. So he pretended to be listening, but in reality his steps became faster and faster. There were 2 brothers from out of town who worked in the city. In order to save money on housing, they moved to a place that was said to be haunted. Even though they saved money on rent, the 2 were still very scared. They agreed that if one person came home from work first in the evening, they would wait for the other person outside the house before going upstairs together. One day the younger brother didn't come home until 12 o'clock at night. Seeing his older brother waiting under the lamp post, he felt very warm inside and quickly ran over. "Brother, I'm sorry I came home late and made you wait so long." The brother said, "It's okay, we already met," and the 2 entered the house and went up the elevator. In the elevator, the younger brother said to him, "Wait until we earn money and then move to another place. I always have the feeling that living here is terrible." The brother standing next to him replied yes. The elevator stopped on the 2nd floor where the brothers lived. The younger brother took the key to open the door to the room. The older brother was standing behind and said, "I'm not going in." "Huh? What's wrong with you?" the younger brother asked. "Haha," with that weird cold laugh, the older brother said, "Am I like your brother?" At this time, my brother's phone vibrated and I heard a voice say, "Honey, I have to work part-time at the company, I'm on my way home." This story Thatch Enum had heard, but in this space it made his hair stand on end. I walked faster and faster just hoping to quickly escape this hell. He didn't dare look at his friend. Suddenly in your ear, do you think I look like Thwangiabang? Thatch Enum quickly screamed and fainted on the ground. When he woke up, he found himself lying in his room, sleeping on his bed. A nightmare. At 6 o'clock in the evening, his head was heavy thinking back to what had just happened. It was 6 o'clock in the evening when he walked out the door. Could it be that time stops? But he swore he had been in that stairwell for at least an hour, and it was still only 6 o'clock in the evening. The more Thatch Enum thought about it, the more scared he became. Suddenly, a babbling sound came from somewhere, making him scream loudly. "I don't want to be in the room, I want to go out." I went downstairs to get my car. These past few days, I've been working for the company very late, so I took the car home. He decided to drive around a bit to see the night scenery and wanted to avoid this scary place. He was driving, still thinking on the road whether what had just happened was real or crazy. I hold the steering wheel firmly but don't know where I'm driving, the traffic still moves like crazy on the road. He remembered a few things, a few people he had met. Meeting a few people changed his life a bit. Some changes are important turning points in life. If he hadn't moved here in the first place, he wouldn't have met friends who like to tell ghost stories and wouldn't have had the tragic events that happened later. Of course, it's not like wandering around in the middle of the night like this. There are 6 people and only 5 people live there. So who among them is a ghost, or are they all ghosts? After they finished telling the story, they either died or disappeared. Why is there such a coincidence? There must be some connection here. I've racked my brain and analyzed it but still have no answer. Why did he meet Thuong Gia Bang with a cold appearance in the basement? Could he be a ghost? Thinking about these things made him scared. He tried hard and was very aware that he was driving. But he didn't know how long he had been driving. There was a popping sound and the car suddenly wobbled. He couldn't control the steering wheel. It was really unlucky, the car's tire blew out. He immediately pulled out his phone to call the rescue center, but the phone had no signal. He walked around hoping he could salvage the signal. He walked back and forth. Suddenly an old red car appeared behind him, passing him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the person sitting in the car turn his head to look at him. "Oh no, stranger, it's Thuong Tho." "Thuong Tho? Isn't he already dead? Why are you here?" Thatch Enum almost fainted. He was stunned for a moment. I really saw a ghost. The cold winter night combined with fear, and when he went out the door he only quickly put on a sweater that gave him chills. Ever since he saw Thuong Tho, he always felt like the darkness of death was always following him, as if wanting to take his life. What to do now? Where do I hide now? I want to find a place to hide. Not far away there is a motel, there are bound to be people there, it might be a little safer. He stood in front of the inn gate, booked a room and decided to stay here to calm his mind. The room slowly lit up. Every room in this motel was painted white, the windows and bed sheets were all white. In the light of the neon lights, the white was even brighter. The doors, windows, and even the kitchen wall were given a lot of attention when designing. He felt extremely frustrated. How could such a big room look like a tomb? In such a white space, the air seemed thin, the covering white seemed to want to swallow him whole. He lay quietly in the blanket. There was a knock on the door, knock knock knock, waking Thatch Enum up. It even helped him escape from this space filled with fear. He quickly rushed out to open the door, and outside was Triauduuk Tin. Thatch Enum was like a savior. He looked at her with surprise and asked, "Hey, how did you know I was here?" "Ha ha." Triauduuk Tin laughed very strangely. She looked at Thatch Enum with a cold look and said coldly, "How could I not know? We all know you are here." "We?" "Yes, it's us, the people in the Ghost Storytelling Association." Ghost Storytelling Association. Hearing her mention, Thatch Enum suddenly thought of those strange things that happened. Aren't they, not at home? Why aren't you home? They all know you're here alone and want to see you. Before he finished speaking, Truunkiat suddenly appeared. He was so tall, but how could he stand hidden behind Triuduktin? Seeing him appear, Thatch Enum was startled. Truunkiat, I heard you're on a business trip, Thatch Enum asked. Truunkiat was not surprised and replied, I've already returned from a business trip and I'm just waiting to come find you. After listening, Thatch Enum nervously asked, so where are you? Why didn't I see you? I have worked these past few days and come home very late every day. Maybe you haven't seen me. Truunkiat said. Hearing this, Thatch Enum felt a little more reassured, but the feeling of instability was always present in him. Seeing Triuduktin, he remembered the message she sent him on QQ and quickly asked, what is it that you texted me online? Triuduktin replied coldly, I said I'll come find you when the time comes. What time? Game time. Play what? Horror game. Listening to her, Thatch Enum responded, I've been encountering so many scary things lately that I'm scared to death. Triuduktin frowned, looked at him with disdain and said, what a coward, not like a boy at all. What are you afraid of? Haven't we been playing this game forever? He quickly explained, before, we were just telling stories, but today I actually saw a ghost. Just outside, a car passed by, and on it I saw Vuongdo. In this room, too. So it feels very strange, I'm scared out of my mind. You were the one who founded the Horror Storytelling Association. I didn't expect you to be so cowardly. It's ridiculous. Triuduktin said disdainfully. Thatch Enum immediately replied, I'm not mistaken, it's really Vuongdo. I'm Thatch Enum, I'm not the cowardly type, but I really saw a ghost. Triuduktin and Truunkiat looked at each other and said, there's nothing to be afraid of, there are no ghosts in this world. We want to see ghosts again, haha. Listening to them made me laugh and cry, the events of that day. What I've encountered now is enough to make me terrified. I just pray that I won't have to encounter such things again in the future, but these two people want to see ghosts. Thatch Enum suddenly had a bad feeling, as if one of the two of them was a ghost. Thatch Enum waved his hand and said he did not want to participate in the game. Truunkiat immediately continued, don't interrupt everyone, Tom Tien is also coming, we all want to find you to play together. Tom Tien, haven't you returned to your hometown? Have you returned? Where are you now? Thatch Enum looked around but couldn't see him anywhere. Ha, 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 a loud laugh echoed. He looked back and forth but still couldn't see anyone anywhere. Looking at Triuduktin and Truunkiat with suspicion, both of them said nothing and just looked at Thatch Enum. In this quiet moment, they could hear the breathing of all three people. All three people stood looking at each other without saying a word. Thatch Enum's shoulders felt heavy, someone from behind hit his shoulder with a cold hand like stone. Thatch Enum turned his head to look but saw no one. Thatch Enum was patted on the shoulder again. He hated being teased by others the most. Turning around, he discovered Tom Tien standing right behind him. Thatch Enum turned from anger to joy, punched Tom Tien. This guy came back without saying a word. Tom Tien didn't say anything, just looked at everyone and smiled. Triuduktin's face darkened and he said to Thatch Enum with displeasure, we came from far away, yet you didn't invite us into the room. Thatch Enum seemed to have just woken up from a dream. Look, I was scared by everyone and almost fainted. Go to your room, go to your room. Actually, in Thatch Enum's mind, he still doubted all three people. He was afraid that the ghost would be one of the members of this ghost storytelling association. 4 people entered the room was white. Thatch Enum said, Did you three meet to find me?" All three people smiled and nodded. Thatch Enum said impatiently, "Is there anything you need me for? Didn't you say just now that you were looking to play a game?" Thatch Enum's voice was worried and a little nervous. "What game?" Tom Tien continued asking, "Have you ever seen a ghost?" Thatch Enum nodded and shook his head again because he still didn't understand anything. Tom Tien said, "Let's play the ghost game today. Let the ghost appear. For ghosts to appear, this is the only way to make the ghost appear. If you know who is the ghost, you don't need to be afraid anymore." Thatch Enum thought about it and agreed. He didn't want to let this continue to scare him even more, still knowing that the end result would be terrible. "If we die, we must know what the ghost looks like." Thatch Enum participates in this game. The rules of the game are as follows. 4 people arranged to stand in the 4 corners of the white room, turn off the lights, then face up to the ceiling. The game starts, one of the 4 people will go to another corner, then tap the shoulder of the person standing in that corner. Next, the person being patted on the shoulder follows that way to a corner of the wall in a different direction that everyone agrees is clockwise or counterclockwise, then continues to pat the next person's shoulder. Just play like that, but if you go into a corner and there is no one in that corner, you have to cough once, then continue to the next corner until there is someone standing. Listen to the game's introduction. Thatch Enum was somewhat reassured. This was a game he had played before. The end of the game is, after playing for a while, you will discover that there are times when there is no coughing sound, so it proves that there are people in that corner and some people continue to walk without ever stopping. So the game has appeared one more time. Who is this person? The answer will be this person is a ghost. Remember a year ago, when he was in the dormitory, Thatch Enum used to play this game, and after playing for a while it ended. In the dark night, when some of us were touched by a cold arm, everyone was startled and screamed. And everyone quickly ended the game and pushed the canvas door out. At that time I was still young, now I have passed that stage. Now that I think back and compare ghost encounters, this game is not that big of a deal. The game they are about to play here is a little different, that is, when they detect another person, they must turn on the lights immediately. At this point everyone can clearly see the ghost's shape. The strange things that Thatch Enum has recently encountered are so many that they urge him to participate in the game with an excited mood. He wants to know which one of them is that ghost. Only by knowing the truth will he be able to dispel it. Dispel his sense of fear. So he raised his hand and agreed immediately. The game begins. All the lights were turned off, the curtains were closed, there was no light, the whole space was covered in darkness, the room had no sound. The feeling in the dark of this room becomes extremely mysterious and terrible. The 4 of them staggered step by step like snails. Thatch Enum is the one who starts the game, the one who gropes around in the dark to pat the shoulder of the person in the other corner. The game is very thrilling and suspenseful. The surrounding was quiet, only footsteps could be heard. His hands groped along the wall, his feet walked forward, and he didn't know how long it took before he finally reached the next corner. His shaking hands hit the person in front. That person was hit but didn't say a word and groped step by step to find the person at the next corner. 4 people stood at the 4 corners of the wall and waited in silence, their emotions becoming more and more depressed. Stories about ghosts from the past keep appearing in everyone's mind. In the silence, he couldn't see anything but only heard the sound of rustling footsteps. Thatch Enum listened attentively to distinguish the near and far of the sounds. I don't know how long it took for the sound of coughing to interrupt his terribly distant thoughts. Next, someone tapped his shoulder and he continued walking along the wall. Slowly go behind the next person's back, using your cold hand to hit that person's cold back. That person fumbled forward again. Thatch Enum felt a terrible cold feeling. Thatch Enum's shoulder continued to be hit like that. He knew that they had walked a circle, everyone's hands and backs were very cold. Maybe they also feel something is different but cannot explain the abnormality. Thatch Enum did not hear the cough. And the only explanation for not hearing that cough is that there was another person between them. Everyone was so scared they wanted to scream. The opportunity had come. Before turning off the lights and starting the game, Thatch Enum remembered the location of the light switch. He quickly went to that place and pressed the switch hard. The room suddenly lit up, everyone looked scared. Thatch Enum blinked and then quickly opened his eyes to see who was the ghost under the light of the lamp. In the middle of the room, a person suddenly appeared. All four corners of the wall, including Thatch Enum, had people standing. So in this middle position, another person had just appeared. This person wore an extremely ferocious-looking mask, opening his mouth wide to reveal a bloody tongue. The ghost suddenly appeared, making all four of them scared. They didn't expect this method to be so effective, but they just don't know why it had to wear a mask, but it's okay, because there are three friends by his side. Thatch Enum doesn't feel scared because more people make him stronger. Even if he dies, he still has someone to go down to the golden stream with. It's better than screaming in fear when you're alone in the basement. Thinking for a moment, he was surprised to discover that Triuduke Tien, Truunkiat, and Tom Tien had all disappeared. The masked ghost began grinding its teeth, then chuckled and slowly walked towards him. Thatch Enum was extremely scared and hurriedly called out, "Truunkiat, Tom Tien, where have you all gone?" No one answered. His scream attracted the ghost's attention and it rushed towards him faster. The ghost quickly approached Thatch Enum. It didn't want to pay attention to his screams. Not knowing what had happened, its head suddenly spurted out blood flowing in streams behind the mask. There was blood everywhere, the head and mask were sticky, even the clothes were stained with blood. Blood flowed to the ground. Thatch Enum turned around to run but was grabbed by the ghost. Its arm was cold and stiff like a tree. Its cold and wet hand clung to Thatch Enum and he felt goosebumps all over his body. His teeth were shaking, his legs seemed to soften. During the time of fear, the three friends were nowhere to be seen. They were friends like that. Thatch Enum was both scared and angry, not knowing what to do. The demon grabbed his neck with his cold, slimy hands. Its hands tightened even more. Thatch Enum's face turned red and he was suffocating. "No, I can't sit and wait for death." Thatch Enum started to protest. He waved his hand. How could he escape from it? "Why did you hurt me? Who are you?" The demon didn't pay attention to him. It turned its neck. Thatch Enum saw its white bone exposed in its throat, like a water pipe flowing upwards, blood flowing out. His neck was broken but he still talked and laughed. It strangled him even tighter. Looking at that ferocious mask, Thatch Enum could only clearly see the demon's eyes. His lifeless eyes didn't know where to look and couldn't even guess what he wanted. Thatch Enum could not escape the demon. Its cold arms were tightly pressed against his neck. Thatch Enum was about to suffocate. Thatch Enum breathlessly said, "Why did you do that to me? What grudge do I have against you?" The demon smiled faintly, looked at him with cold eyes and said, "I just want to play games with you." "Why choose me?" "Because you are the one who chose this game." Thatch Enum didn't say anything. He was the founder of the Ghost Storytelling Association. It seemed that this ghost had been in their group since the association began. Thatch Enum, "So what do you want?" "It's impossible, I just want to drag you into our group." "You guys, who are you?" "Those who have told stories." The ghost loosened his grip, maybe because he found the question too funny. "Where are they?" The demon slowly said, "They're like me, let's continue the game with you." "What you said, they're, like you?" The demon laughed loudly, its laughter rang out in the dark night. "Yes, they all turned into demons like me now." Only then did Thatch Enum realize, no wonder he came to such a remote deserted place and they found it all the way to the spot, and also appeared and disappeared, talking was strangely yin and yang. It turned out, they were all have turned into ghosts. The demon laughed again, the blood from his head kept flowing down his shoulders, then soaked into his clothes. Thatch Enum didn't want to see the blood flowing profusely, so he covered his ears with his hand. His arm reaching up accidentally touched that terrifying mask. Only now did he clearly see the ghost's true face. It was his friend, the dead man, Vuongdo. After Vuongdo sat in the back of that car just now, Thatch Enum did not expect to meet him in this joke with his life. It turned out that he killed everyone after telling the story. Thatch Enum was the last one to tell the story, that's why he survived until now. Thatch Enum finally knew the truth of the matter. Stuck, Vuongdo gritted his teeth, smiled coldly and waved his hand at Thatch Enum. "Ha ha ha ha," in my ears was a shrill call and cheerful laughter. Suddenly Triuduke Tin, Truunkiat, Tom Tien appeared from nowhere and rushed to Thatch Enum, laughing mockingly, and raised his arm to prepare to grab Thatch Enum. Seeing their scary faces approaching with their flailing limbs, Thatch Enum screamed in fear and fainted on the ground. Not knowing how long it had been, Thatch Enum seemed to have had a long dream. He woke up and discovered that he was lying on the bed in his own room, covered with a very warm blanket. Next to him were friends surrounding him, some applying towels, others taking his temperature. Thatch Enum seemed to be in a mental panic. He noticed his busy friends and realized they were Truunkiat, Thuangia Bang, Tom Tien, and Ha Tu Din. "Why are you suddenly so focused? Aren't they all gone?" And the two policemen who often come to harass us are also present. At this moment, when Vuongdo saw that Thatch Enum had no problem, he breathed a sigh of relief. As soon as he saw Vuongdo, Thatch Enum suddenly remembered everything that happened before fainting. These 7 people were all ghosts. He screamed in fear and jumped up as if he wanted to escape from this place. Seeing his panic, Truunkiat quickly pulled him and said, "Don't be afraid, this is just a joke." "What, a joke?" Thatch Enum looked at Truunkiat with suspicion. Triuduke Tin brought a cup of warm water, her face turned red and she looked at him with concern. "Yes, it's actually a joke," Vuongdo added. Several people around also nodded and looked at Thatch Enum. Thatch Enum looked at everyone with doubt. How could he know what would happen next? Looking at Thatch Enum's doubtful expression, Vuongdo slowly explained that it turned out that everything had been planned. On the first night, after Vuongdo finished telling the first story, The Wardrobe, if it was simply telling a story, there would be nothing special. He came up with a trick to make the ghost storytelling association more interesting. More activities. On the following weekend, he deliberately did not join everyone, and called his 2 police friends who liked to joke, arranged for them to hide downstairs, and when he heard anything unusual in the house, he immediately rushed in. Vuongdo, outside the window, heard Tom Tien tell the story of the second night, so he went to his room, opened all the window curtains to make his room so chillingly cold, and then locked himself in the closet and pretended to be dead. Scare him. When the storytelling session ended that night, Tom Tien returned to his room and deliberately let the closet door make noise, creating a terrifying atmosphere for himself. He was relatively successful with this scene. Tom Tien was scared to the point of shaking and his whole body was cold when he took the thick blanket from the closet, at which point Vuongdo pretended to be dead and fell out. Tom Tien was so scared that he quickly went to call someone else. Everyone was scared to death. At this time, two police friends that Vuongdo had arranged to come in and participate in solving the case. Vuongdo was then moved to his friend's house. Later, the two police officers continued to deliberately pretend to investigate the case. Tom Tien was scared to death, so Vuongdo went online to inform him of all the news about his death and told him to join in on the joke, and would continue to scare the next storytellers. The purpose of this new joke is not only to enrich the Ghost Storytelling Association but also to train everyone to be more courageous. At the same time, the game also plays out like other deadly jokes, making the weekend is even more stressful and exciting. Vuongdo felt quite excited about this initiative of his, proven in fact that after he died, people who met him again felt terrified. After being scared, the storytellers knew this was just a joke and actively responded and joined in to scare the next storytellers. After every night of storytelling, someone goes missing. The last person to tell the story will be the one who receives the most terrible fear, and unexpectedly the unlucky person will be Thach Enom. As soon as Vuongdo finished speaking, everyone nodded in unison. Tom Tien chuckled, "Our game is so dramatic, it would be a pity if we didn't have it." Two police friends standing next to him nodded, "Our mission is to coordinate and cooperate to make the game more attractive." Thach Enom's eyes widened when he heard the wild stories just now and gradually found a reasonable explanation for the strange things he encountered. Vuongdo appeared in the closet or in the back of the car, then three friends appeared at the boarding house, and then Triuduk Tin's sad face. What just happened was like a movie playing in his head. He suddenly remembered the dark basement under the house, then the endless staircase, and asked Thuong Gia Bang how come the staircase is so endless. His unexpected question made Thuong Gia Bang extremely surprised, so he asked which stairs. "The stairs are in the basement." Thach Enom's answer made everyone confused. Their faces changed and they asked him again, "The last floor is below, why do they have stairs?" "What, isn't it your joke this time?" It was Thach Enom's turn to change color. "In the basement there is a very long staircase, very long, with no end. I went down there and Thuong Gia Bang stayed there." "Ah!" Thuong Gia Bang shouted in horror, "But I swear I didn't know there were stairs, and I've never been down to the basement." Everyone said nothing, just knowing. Looking at each other, at this moment Thach Enom felt his head spinning and heard someone's ha-ha laugh, a satisfied laugh that did not stop. Thach Enom's head seemed to stretch, a very loud question swirled in his head, on that endless staircase, who was the person he had met? His lifeless eyes looked around, then looked at everyone with wonder. Thuong Gia Bang and his friends also looked round. Eyes looking at each other with a look of surprise, Thach Enom's voice seemed to blend into the space like a whirlpool that swirled endlessly, and dispersed in the endless blue sky. The end.
Thank you for taking the time to watch Ghost Stories video. Hopefully the content has brought you interesting and meaningful moments. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Ghost Stories YouTube channel to follow the channel's next videos. See you in the next video. Have a good day.